Dant Crossing, Gethsemane, Kentucky. Timeless hospitality that stirs the spirit. Dant Crossing is a one-of-a-kind destination for unforgettable weddings, memorable corporate events, day trips, and weekend getaways. The pastoral campus is anchored by Roxy Distillery and includes an amphitheater that seats 2,000, a 12-acre lake for fishing and unique lodging options, creating an immersive experience that's rooted in the community and culture of our little slice of Kentucky. More attractions will open soon at Dant Crossing, including our 21,000 square foot distillery, which we will have the ability to produce 15,000 barrels of spirit each year, a network of wooded walking trails, fully functional private train depot, farm-to-table restaurant, and the Legacy, a premier wedding and events venue. Whether you're looking to host an event, book a stay, or reserve a tasting, we're ready to welcome you. Learn more at dantcrossing.com.
There we go. We're live. This is the YouTube Extra. We are the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. Tonight we are joined by Tripp Whitbeck, right?
Come on.
But yeah, about 50,000 times I've said it, but it's like for the first, what would you say?
It trips up your tongue.
Yeah. But
Touche.
yeah. Anyways, but Tripp is here with us tonight. Say hello.
Hey there. This is Tripp Whitbeck, founder, CEO of I Bourbon.
And then also,
right.
Yes. Woo! Then we have Roxy, myself, Tiny, and Xavier here tonight. And
Greetings.
Very
Thank
excited. Once again, we have the bottle of I Bourbon courtesy. Thank you very much for letting us taste this. Like I said, we put this through rigor. Yes, it definitely
The rigorous ringer. Okay.
on a cold, snowy Ohio.
Snow day.
Yeah, actually, Xavier came over last night, and that's when we did the neck pour. And then now he hasn't been put, but then I worked a half day, but when I came home, I normally come home from work, get ready for the podcast, do everything set up. Well, I got it set up around, and I was ready to do about 2:30, 3 o'clock. And I'm like,
now what?
What? Yeah. So I said, well, let's just start doing this. So
That's why he's having a hard time with my name right now.
Yeah.
It's been 6 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's funny. Cause, no, actually, I'm doing all right tonight. Usually, if I'm going to be having trouble, there's some slurring going on, right?
Yeah, no, you're fine. We were using the tiny Glencairns.
So, just for the get into a little bit for the YouTube people, a little bit about your background, where you came from, and then kind of how you came up, about how this came into perspective for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lawyer by training. I went straight from college to law school, briefly practiced real estate development law. Sadly, my county just stopped real estate developing in 2007, 2008, like most of the country. And my big corporate law firm laid me off. I became a political operative. I was a corporate salesman. But really always in the back of my head and always of prime interest to me has been craft and artisanal spirits. I love that. I call it sort of alchemy of being able to take, grains and water and wood and just come up with something dynamic and magical by just leaving it in the heat and the cold and the heat and the cold and the heat and the cold. And it's just, and so I quit my job. I've been doing this full time. I started the business in April of 2019. So we're coming up now on 3 years.
Yeah, that's
Very good.
Excellent. We were talking a little bit about we were all down at Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and you were down there promoting, with like you were saying, it's like you're the one man guy, but you seem to have somewhat of a team, right? It wasn't just one man booth.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm the only employee. I'm the only shareholder of the business. I own the entire business. But what I've done over the last 3 years is really just it's almost like a family tree. I mean, one person put me in touch with 2 people who put me in touch with 2 people who put me in touch with 2 people. And so now I have about, I don't know, 15 people or so that I have either on retainer or on contract, consultants, lawyers, sourcers. And so I've assembled what I think is the best team. But yeah, I'm still a one-man band. I still lean very heavily into the people that have been doing this for decades, because I don't know what I don't know still, but this is truly a passion of mine.
Okay. All right. So that's good. We got a little background. So what we're going to do is start our podcast. So usually on the podcast, what happens is when we hit and we go to, I've got the music set. We wait for about 30 seconds that I strip in onto the YouTube. It records on the podcast. So we do that. And then we go into a music introduction. We have a guy locally, Little Steve-O, we were using for a long time, the Doors Alabama song, Show Me the Way to the Next Whiskey Bar. But we were using the Doors. So all of my YouTube, any royalties from YouTube were going to Elektra Records. So I had him cut one for me, and that took care of my copyright problem. So, and I figure you could appreciate that because this is the kind of stuff you go through.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so I'm just going to hit start record. We will.
Look happy, Xavier.
There you go. Come on, man.
You haven't seen sad.
Spirits of French Lick is proud to introduce the Maddie Gladden Bottled and Bond Bourbon. This 4-year aged bourbon is double pot distilled and non-chill filtered and has a full-bodied mouthfeel with eucalyptus, molasses, clove, ginger, and slight citrus as well as grains of paradise. The finish is long and reappearing on the back of the tongue with notes of pepper, tobacco leaf, and mint green. All of our spirits are available for tasting and purchase inside the French Lick Winery and Distillery. Spirits of French Lick. Respect the grain, please enjoy responsibly, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die.
All right, welcome.
Here we are, back at it.
To another podcast of the Scotchy Bourbon
And
Boys.
let's introduce our tonight's special guest.
Yes, special.
Trip Whitbeck. There we go.
All right.
That's
We're
right.
applauding Tripp and we're applauding Xavier, or Tiny's ability to pronounce
Bill, how
his
much
name.
bourbon have you had already?
None yet. That's the problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Tonight we got Roxy here. Myself, Xavier. No.
Yeah, and me, Tiny. We're just trying to confuse
No,
you.
Yeah, we're trying
trying
to. No, Xavier and myself, Tiny. Welcome back. We're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. www.scotchybourbonboys.com. Check us out. You can get everything there. Check out the store. You can get Glencairns, Crystal Glencairns, and then also T-shirts and bourbon balls. So check that out, please.
Balls.
So let's just get right into it with Tripp. He is the pretty much literally the one-man
Everything.
show for the for his company, which is I Bourbon, but it's Tripple, right?
Tripple LLC is the
Right.
company. Yeah, that's my corporation, and I'm currently only doing business as I Bourbon, but eventually we'll add to that.
Yeah, it's the hot commodity, right? It's
Damn
the
right
one
it
that
is.
just make sure that you need to go to. So we talked a little bit before on the YouTube, but one of the things, what you're doing is you're blending, correct? That's
Yes.
you're purchasing, you're
Yep.
going around. Do you taste the barrels before you purchase
yeah.
them?
Oh, good
All
God. Yeah. I one of the fun things, one of the earliest people I got to know, and obviously I did not pick it a great year given COVID. So I didn't really get to meet almost any of these people. This was all by mail and by Zoom and by Google Meet and by telephone. Was a great sourcer of barrels. And so I told him basically what I wanted to do, and he started sending me samples, these little blue apothecary bottles full of different things, Florida, Kentucky, from Tennessee, from New York, from, really all over. And I told him what I liked, told him what I didn't like, and really landed very heavily on an old, about a 13-year-old Tennessee bourbon that I really liked, and just really appreciated the heft of it. And then said, well, if you can find some younger from this same mash bill, from this same profile, I will create my blend from that, because I really wanted to have there's a bit of cachet, I think, in the business to being able to call it straight bourbon whiskey, which just basically means it's all from the same state. And so I wanted to call it Tennessee straight bourbon whiskey. And so that's what I did. So I found some younger bourbons, 5 years old, 6 years old, younger barrels, tasted them. They married really well. And we can get into how I set it up. But yeah, this was a lot of tasting, a lot of stuff in my kitchen. I bought a bunch of water droppers, bought a alcohol hygrometer, coming up with the proof, coming up with the blend. It's been a real labor of love.
So how many barrels was the batch?
The first run was about 17,000 bottles. So it's probably, I would say, because you get obviously less yield on the older stuff than the newer stuff. I probably bought about almost 100 barrels.
Okay. So now when it was all being blended together, so how did you work the tasting of that? Like when they mixed the barrels and you were putting them in and you were creating that flavor profile, where did you go right there? Were you with them, or did you do that through, they would blend and then send it to you?
No. I created the blend myself. I identified the 13-year-old, the 5-year-old, the 6-year-old, the other years. And I, in my kitchen, created what I thought was the ratio, what I thought was the proof. But one of the fun things I learned was proof is also dependent on the temperature around it. And I didn't want to tell my bottler in Bardstown to go ahead and bottle 17,000 bottles based on what I was assuming was the right proof. So I actually employed a chemist, and they sent me a bunch of different samples, again, in these little apothecary bottles, with the blend, with the percentages that I had, but with slightly different, moderately different proofs, moderately different percentages. And I landed on them.
I have a question, and I'm anxious to hear your answer, because I know there's a good one that, not being in the industry, I'm just ignorant to it. But you're distilling in Tennessee and bottling in Kentucky.
Yes.
So kind of explain that to us a little bit.
Well, I'm sourcing Tennessee barrels. Right. It's one of the joys. So, I would call myself more a creator than a distiller. When I founded the business 3 years ago, I didn't have, 10 or 15 years to grow the corn, put it in the, and distill it and do all that. So, I knew I needed to source. Ultimately, I will want to have my own distillery, but that's years down the road.
Right. Could you not bottle in Tennessee? Was it more conducive to bottle in Bardstown, Kentucky?
Yeah, I found a really great bottler that I really liked in Bardstown. One of the first or second people that I got to meet, and so I wanted to go with them. There was no logic per se that I needed to bottle it in Kentucky for it to be considered this or that. It was just that I really liked this contract.
Oh, no, I get that. I was just looking at it from a management background of the transport cost from source to bottle.
Yeah. I really liked the people that I knew there, and so I wanted to use them, and they're still storing some of my extra stuff in stainless steel, what they call totes, these big tubs, because I wanted to stop the aging process for my next batch.
Awesome.
Neat.
Okay, so that fills in a lot of blanks for me. I can imagine where you're going. Anyways, so okay, I have it. Okay, so what you talked about it a little bit, but what are the challenges of trying to release a brand during a pandemic? And I get that there was an influx of people drinking whiskey. That was one positive aspect of the pandemic. But the other aspect is it seems to me it was a challenge to actually get the word out, because normally what you can do is it can be served at bars, or it can be, you can work with the distributors, but it was as if that whole face-to-face and everything, like you said, was turned to Zoom, or it was turned to other things, other way. What was the big challenge that you had?
Well, the challenge remains, unfortunately, in terms of brick and mortar distribution, getting what I'll call audiences with states and with distributors has remained tricky. There are not as many states are even considering new SKUs, and haven't really in the last year. Just haven't considered a new bourbon in a very long time, because they just, I think, I guess the logic is we can't get everyone all around the table and taste it at the same time. I don't happen to agree with that logic, but that's what I've been told. I'll reserve further judgment on that. So, I mean, I think in terms of brick and mortar distribution, it's been tricky. The one nice thing I will say is that everyone who's tried it has bought it. So I'm currently in brick and mortar in about 7 states. I've been selling online through my website, which is i-bourbon.com. Thank you. And selling quite successfully, and that ships to over 30 states. So, but the challenge of COVID was not in existence when I started the business in April of 2019. I spent that next 8, 9, 10 months designing the bottle, sourcing the whiskey, all of that stuff. I didn't go into the bottle, as I put it, until December of 2020. So it was then that was about 8 months into the pandemic. So and that definitely also slowed everything down, because I had my bottle, which as I spent many months and a lot of money designing, which hopefully we'll get into because I'm quite proud of it, in Slovenia. And Slovenia made the glass. And quite frankly, obviously, there were COVID shutdowns. Also Portugal, who designed a very special cork and stopper closure, which hopefully we'll get into as well. That took about 3 months for them to figure out how to do what I wanted them to do. That obviously had a lot of COVID shutdowns in Western Europe. So that was also, everything got delayed probably, I would say, by about 6 months in terms of just execution of getting the darn thing into the bottles.
Right. And then not to mention the glass shortage that's going on right now.
Well, fortunately, I missed that.
You have enough bottles right now to do what you want to do for a while.
I never experienced that, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, I chose a 900 gram bottle, which is about as heavy as you can get. The idea being it's something that's going to stop people in the aisle. But also, once you're done with it, maybe you use it as a decanter, or you use it as a flower vase or something. But it's
a candle in it, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I have a lot of special bottles, and that will just go up on I have a special bottle where I put lights in, and I put it up above my. I wish I could. I'll turn the camera at the end and show you, but it's up on the mantle above my fireplace. So I've got the special bottle. So,
well, it definitely will catch the eye in the stores once it's there on the shelves, because when it arrived at our house and opened it up and Jeff set it on the kitchen counter, and I came home and I was like, wow, that is a kick-ass bottle. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
So,
well, that was the idea is To be honest, Roxy, I was given the premise at the beginning that, oh, there are about 6 or 10 standard bottles, and that would have been a lot easier for me to do. I had to pay a lot of money to get one of these things to carry it down the assembly line, because it has to hold in a specific place.
Well, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a piece of equipment I had to create because it's a unique shape and so forth. So, I mean, it cost me a lot of money, but my thought was, I don't have millions of dollars to spend on marketing. So why don't I let the bottle be some marketing? Because I can tell you,
it will definitely do that.
Pretty neat concept. Yeah.
I mean, I really want it. Yeah, I mean, I've tried bourbons and other liquors in the past for no other reason than the bottle. And obviously the juice still has to be amazing because you want people to come back to it. But I can't tell you how many things I've just tried because I just thought it looked compelling. And so, yeah, I mean, it took a long time to execute the vision. And
the bottle will get you in the door, but the juice will keep you there. Yep.
Well, that's and yeah, I mean, there were a lot of different ideas that I had that I wanted to get. I mean, for example, the cork and stopper closure, I wanted sort of a like a decanter glass top, but I didn't want to waste all the money of having broken glass. And I'm one of the first that I'm aware of that has the clear acrylic stopper with a natural cork. And that took about 3 months for the Portugal people to figure out how to do, because usually there are, I don't know if your folks know this, but there are teeth in opaque plastic or wood stoppers that hold the natural cork in. Right. But when you have something clear, you don't want the messiness of the teeth. Mm-hmm. So they had to figure out how to do the adhesive in such a way that it wouldn't show and it wouldn't bubble. So that took a really, really, really long time for them to figure out how to develop. And so I'm very proud of this just as an invention in and of itself.
Yeah, no, it's very unique, and I like the eye on the top as well.
Yep. Well, no, I mean the and don't forget the debossed eye in the
back. Yes, there it is.
The embossed word bourbon on the bottom. So ultimately, when I have a gin, for example, it'll still be in this bottle. It'll just say gin here, probably a slightly different color graphic. And it'll say gin at the bottom. But yeah, I'm also proud to announce one of my trademarks back there. This bottle is one of the few bottles that's been fully trademarked and protected. So the U.S. government said this is really unique, and so they agreed with that, which I'm really
congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's huge. It's very rare, according to my trademark attorney, to have a bottle fully protected.
Yeah, I mean, like most. What would you say, bourbon bottle styles? They're using styles that have been used in the past, mm-hmm. And then you see every once in a while you'll see a unique one similar, but even like what you take with Woodford Reserve, which is that flat bottle, whatever. But in the past, there's been
like
flat. There's been the flat design. Bottle, design. So this is definitely a special design that you don't see every day. And
this style is something you expect to see, like some, some Grand Marnier or.
Well, it'll go good at a high-end bar.
It really does grab you. I mean,
thank you.
Light that from behind and put it there. Anywhere in New York, it looks like the Chrysler Building.
Well, I mean, that's funny. Funny you say that. I'm from Manhattan. I'm born and raised in Manhattan, so that was definitely a reference. Not to be too hoity-toity on you, but I really love Chinese bronzes, like ancient Chinese bronzes. And so one of the things I said to my guys was, this is why it took so damn long. Was I said I want it to look heavy, but I don't want it to feel too heavy looking. I want it to still have some kind of verticality to it, I guess, because there's some like Hill Rock, which is a beautiful bottle and was a lot of an inspiration to me, was that really squared out bottle. And that just looks heavy. It's harder to pick up, I think. One of the thoughts I had was that you also can interlace your fingers kind of nicely on this. Mm-hmm. But was that I wanted it to be heavy and look sort of consequential and heavy, but also still have some verticality to it, which is what some of the bronzes do. So, I mean, I was literally sending pictures of Chinese bronzes to my bottle designer and saying, do you kind of get this? Do you see what I mean? So, I mean, it took a long time. And then we developed what I call the shoulders concept with this thing and, tapered it a little bit. I mean, it was a real labor of love. I mean, this took the longest time of anything.
You got a much deserved trademark on it, then
Yeah,
that's
great.
good.
I would say as an artist, I completely understand. I worked in the commercial art industry, creating art for art directors and their visions. And I worked with many different types. You know, some you have to work really hard to get it and it's forever. And then there's others who know what they want and you can, but they're not as quite as picky. But it sounded like your bottle designer came up with a lot of different versions for you.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm privileged to have worked with him. I mean, he's the guy who did the Willet Pot Still
Okay.
bottle, the iconic one of that. Guy named Jimmy Owens, I'll give him a shout out, from Liquor Bottles International. He did the sort of the parchment paper design was the big design on the Buffalo Trace bottle. I mean, the bottle shape is not groundbreaking, but that parchment, that aged parchment label was one of the things he worked on. But yeah, he's become a buddy of mine, and we've I think he really dug the bottle too. So I'm very proud to have worked with him. I'll just give him a shout out.
All right. Yeah, you can even say his name.
I can pronounce it.
All right, so let's do this one, which we kind of hit, but I Bourbon, the bourbon for everyone. So that was your concept of what you wanted to do. Explain that to the people, you know, out there, the whiskey drinkers, what bourbon for everyone actually means to you.
Yeah, I'll start out by saying also a little bit of breaking news. Within the last 10 days, I've gotten notice that I've been approved for the trademark of bourbon for everyone. So that's it's going through the notice and comment period right now. So it might be objected to, but my lawyer doesn't think it will be. So that will join those things on the back. But yeah, my idea was basically, I mean, I love things that feel like you're drinking a campfire, that really punch you in the face. But I know that that's not for everyone. And I really thought, you know, what is the lane that I could take that I think the market is missing? And one of the first people I ever met with was a guy named David Mandel. Give him a little shout out, who founded the Bardstown Bourbon Company. When I first met him back in 2009, I was talking to him about something else. That was when he was a liquor consultant here in the Washington, D.C. area, where I am. And he and I were discussing things. And one of the thoughts he left me with was, you know, there could be a young person's bourbon out on the market. Now, I didn't literally mean that to be like an 18-year-old's bourbon, but what I took it to mean logically was something that was sort of, there are two people or two ad campaigns that I've sort of seen, or presentations for bourbon. It's usually either your great uncle in a 95-degree heat on a veranda with a dusty ceiling fan slightly turning with two fingers and an ice cube, and you're sitting there with him and sweating. The old person's bourbon, or there's the ironic hipster in the seersucker suit at a Kentucky Derby party. But I thought, you know, what if we could kind of create something that was more universal than that? And so the profile is really, as I like to describe it, it's something that's special enough that a connoisseur will love it and be wanting to drink it neat and sharing it, but accessible enough that if you're not really into bourbon, or if you're new to bourbon or whatever, you'd feel very comfortable and not put upon to throw some ice cubes in it or even mix it if needed. So that was the idea of a bourbon for everyone.
And and you mentioned that for young people, and honestly,
that was just the grain. That was the grain.
But honestly, what myself and most young people do with whiskey is they try and skip the taste and just get fucked up. That's the whole idea of what a young person does with whiskey. And then when you start to get older and more, maybe into your 30s, then you might start to try to understand a couple high-end whiskeys, but you're still kind of, and then as you go. So,
and that's where I see this is like, for me, I always call myself a blue collar bourbon drinker. You know, give me Jim Beam, Evan Williams, just whatever's there. But there's that moment where you want to have something that's a little different. What's going to get your eye is this bottle. You're going to look at that first. You're going to read on the bottle and see the embossed letters and whatnot. And you're going to say, you know what? And it's not $100, it's $60. Yeah, I'm going to give this a try. This is just what I need to have something a little different this weekend. And I think that's brilliant, actually.
Yeah, and then the younger person, what this is that what this, like you said, you like the campfire, the big bold. They usually tend, when I give tastings to, like, my son's 23, he just turned 23. Every single thing I gave him since he's been 21, and because he likes gin, but every whiskey I've ever given him is like, all he would say to me is, it burns. It just burns. I don't want to taste it. So then I did a tasting with him with Basil Hayden, and he was kind of intrigued, and then kind of stepped him up to a Knob Creek, and whatever. And so now he kind of understands that you're not trying to just slam 7 shots and get, messed up. You're basically sipping and enjoying and relaxing. And so when I get it, I've been, doing practice flights for his friends to see how I can, get that, the younger age group attracted to, and I'm not talking about under 18 or 21 years old. I'm talking about people who want to start to appreciate whiskey. And I think that there's not a lot of whiskeys that are in that category. They're not there. There's, and that is the lane you're in. And I agree.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I love drinking my whiskey. I'm not saying that I don't. I mean, it's not what I would, if I like the things that pop you in the face, but I know that that's not universal. I think of my dad always puts ice cubes in his whiskey because he gets a little, and then my mom, if she has a sip of whiskey, will go, and so I was thinking of people like them too, who are kind of boxed out of the market. And one of the things I'm very proud of is that my mom likes drinking mine neat, and she doesn't think it burns. And she's not, and I don't think she's BSing me. And the same thing with my dad is that I very, very consciously created my blend. And I went through about 9 or 10 of these little bottles coming up with, is this right? And what was cool was the chemist didn't tell me what each one was. He just wanted my blind reaction. And I told him basically the ratio of 13-year-old to 5 to 6 and so forth that I'd come up with in my kitchen. And I basically wanted it kind of somewhere between, 40 and 47% ABV. And he wouldn't tell me what anything was. And what was novel was he labeled them by letter. And I actually happened to pick the letter I sample, which was kind of a cool thing, but A, B, C, D, E, F. But what was cool was the one that I tried, I went, damn, this has absolutely no burn. This has a great mouthfeel. And the one prior to it, I said, it just doesn't have any mouthfeel, doesn't have any nose. And the difference in those was about 1.5% ABV. It was the exact same blend, but 1.5% ABV made all the difference. And when I went up a little bit in alcohol above this, it lost some of the magic to it, some of the caramel, some of the vibe that I had, but it was just really cool for me as someone who wasn't in the business to see the difference that 3 proof or 1.5% ABV really was making in everything. So that was really eye-opening and very cool.
That's excellent. So as a blender, and that's, you're everything, but you're blending and you're coming up and you're, one of the what would you say, bizarre aspects is that when you have the flavor of one barrel and then you have a flavor of the other barrel, and if you put those together, 2 barrels, all of a sudden you get other flavors in it
Absolutely.
that didn't exist in either barrel. Which is
right.
I was when I went on a barrel pick for Knob Creek with Freddie No, he was saying, and I asked him that, and that was something that he actually said that he loved, that kind of a surprise. Like all of a sudden there was something that wasn't there and he didn't expect, and so then he would just kind of, sometimes it would be annoying because he's trying to hit a flavor profile. So then you'd have to try and take other barrels that you knew were just, the whatever to get that out. So he said that was an issue. But So what I've noticed, and we've kind of, it's been 2018 is when myself and Xavier and we started to get serious into bourbons and scotches and whiskeys. Before that, we were drinkers. We weren't tasters. We would Evan Williams, Jim Beam. I would buy him some E.H. Taylor. He would buy me some Basil Hayden, and then we would drink scotch. We'd have, we had McClellan 12 year. We had Highland Park, 15. We were into everything, but we were just drinking it. So as we got into it, at first, when I first started to really get into this, Scotch has been blending for hundreds of years. Johnny Walker is a blend. It's been around forever. Longer than I think the United States exists. But as far as, and then Canadian, with what all that you ever hear about the Canadian whiskey aspect is that there's some notoriously good blenders. They can blend. They understand blending. But when I started, if you were talking about someone trying to blend some bourbon, there was about 50, 60 people online to tell you you're full of shit and then it's not they just would come up with all this stuff about how you can't, you're mixing the purity of the 13 with this, whatever, and it was just always, blending was completely not, and finishing was completely not accepted. And then in the past couple years, it's something that is becoming accepted, but now it's sought. There's a lot of people.
My ultimate preference, as I was going into this would have been the what I call the backbone of it, the 13-year-old. If you put that at about 50 ABV, that would be what I would say would be what I always turn to, something really just basically, as I like to call it, drinking a campfire. Right. But I knew that I wanted that as the backbone because I wanted still the connoisseur, the lover of bourbon, the obsessed with bourbon to still reach for mine and go, yeah, this is kick-ass. This is great. And because it has that as the backbone, because it has very few bourbons on the market right now go beyond 10 years. Very, very few. And so, the 13-year-old is a really old, really rich bourbon. And so, having that as kind of the soul of the bourbon, I think was very important to me because I didn't want something that was sort of a weak, mass market. Oh, this just doesn't burn, enjoy this. I wanted something that still had that meat to it, that heft, that holy cow, that's good side to it. And so I needed that. I absolutely needed that. But I also knew that the mass market would not necessarily be diving for the 13-year-old profile. And so I needed to I definitely wanted things that were older than 4 years. I didn't want something really young, and 5 and 6 is a really nice age and really nice expression.
Yeah. As far as you don't have young whiskey, 4-year-old is right at the point you're looking at bottled in bonds. It's now no longer a young. Once you reach that 4, if you're 3 and 2, you better have a damn good bourbon in that bottle. Otherwise it's going to taste very not ready.
Well, Tiny, let me tell you something funny that I learned when I first started this thing, when I was creating my bottles and before I had them printed, because there's no label on this. This is all actually printed on here, which was a big thing for me. That was more expensive, but I thought it looked better. I discovered that if you have something that's 4 years or younger, you actually have to list age statement.
Right.
You have to list the youngest bourbon that's in there.
3 or 2. Yeah.
And so I heard some horror stories from some of my consultants where they went, oh yeah. Then this guy discovered that what he released had some 3.5 or had some 4 in it. And he had to go back and start appliquing little stickers on with indications. Otherwise the government would have pulled it. So I went, okay, no, I'm starting at 5 years. That's my, that's my promise. I don't even want to mess because this is my baby. This is my life right now. And the idea of messing up what I think is just this great bottle with little applique stickers would have been, I would want to drown myself.
A nightmare.
Yeah.
That would just be so offensive to me in every way.
And you went into why you picked the Tennessee and you wanted the Tennessee.
No, it was just the best flavor. It was crazy. There's definitely sex appeal to buying Kentucky. But I had to go with what I thought tasted the best. And I was, I would have gone with a New York bourbon if I thought it tasted the best.
Now here's a question when you were doing it. Is it an option for you to buy barrels from a Kentucky distillery and a Tennessee distillery and then blend those together? Is that an option, or does the distillery itself want to control what's being done?
This is the big issue. See that word straight?
Right.
If I combined Kentucky and Tennessee, I couldn't say straight bourbon whiskey.
Okay.
It would just be bourbon whiskey.
Right.
Okay. So the straight, and to say straight, it has to be 4-2, but it also has to come from one distillery.
No, not necessarily one distillery.
Or one state.
Yes.
Okay.
One state. So
But no,
yeah.
You
So
buy from different distilleries.
I'm not going to get into that, but it's a various and sundry. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to know what specific ones. I understood.
Yeah.
That you weren't going to be putting that in. That's all. I understand how that works in the industry. But if you buy from multiple ones, yeah, you covered that. So okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's really all right.
He's got his notes, ladies and gentlemen. He's got his notes.
Oh yeah, I do.
Mhm.
Wow. Awkward pause, right?
We'll edit out this pause.
Some of them were answered already.
Yeah, you answered them, so there you go.
I talk a lot. It's one of my best features.
Oh, that's
That's
good.
when we met Tiny.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
we're
when we
going
met
to-
Tiny, I had a lot to say.
so similar.
Well, so as
Let's
far
drink his bourbon.
well,
Yeah, I know.
but
Or Xavier some more, will you?
Yeah.
yeah. As far
Thank
as
you.
as far as future do you think you're going to consistently do the same are you looking to do the same blend and keep I Bourbon, or will you improve it?
Oh, this is my blend for what I Bourbon will be. I mean, there certainly might be, some, obviously we're talking years down the road, but because I still need, I need to get into brick and mortar. I need to, proof of concept this. I need to get a whole mess of media. I need to get a whole mess of people loving it. And quite frankly, when people have tried it, they've loved it. I always say I would be having a come to Jesus moment right now if I had been giving it out and people were saying, yeah, you know what, Tripp, but it's nice, it's good, but it's just it's not something we want, or the presentation's nice, but the juice isn't all that good. I have to tell you, everyone who's tried it has really, really liked it, if not loved it, and has bought it. So I'm really stoked about that. So this is I Bourbon. Now, if I might have, down the road, like a special edition that might have more of the 13 or something like that, or something to that effect. But this is the vision for I Bourbon. I think ultimately, 5 years down the road, maybe or so, I will have an I Gin. I think that's probably going to be my next endeavor, but this will always be the presentation and the execution of what I Bourbon is.
Right, and because some of the other blenders kind of get out of flavor profile, consistent flavor profile by just doing batch after batch.
Barrel does that, I think, a lot.
Well, Barrel Craft and Kentucky Owl and also Old Carter are all batches, and from batch to batch, they're different.
Very different.
So when you, but that's what I was trying to get at. So you're gonna
as long as I can still source it. Maybe there'll be a product shortage at some point, but I sure hope not. As long as I can still source what I like, this will be it. This is my thing.
Knowing kind of where you're probably coming from, hopefully they do produce a good amount of
some of them do, not all of them do. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
So, are you, and I didn't see it on your webpage, that's quite okay, not everybody does it. Are you at any point going to publish what the mash bill is?
It's multiple.
It's
multiple, right?
Yeah, it's blends.
Yeah. Well, no, it is. It's a similar mash bill.
You don't have to have a similar mash bill to maintain a similar taste.
No,
right. It's a high corn bourbon. It's very low rye and low barley. It's got all three of them.
I guess the low rye, because that's what keeps you mentioned proof. The other thing that keeps the hug down is the
Yes.
rye content. Or
Well, what was funny, yeah, I don't think I'd ever publish that. I think I might, I mean, I share that certainly with sales reps because it helps them talk about it. But I think that one of the things was when I was getting these little bottles, one of my sourcer guy kind of was hearing a lot from me that I really liked the idea, again, in my head of what I wanted for bourbon for everyone. And I kept talking about, I like the sweetness. I like sweeter things for a bourbon for everyone as a concept. And at one point he just said, I'm going to send you something that's 99-1-0. So in other words, 99 corn, 1 rye, 0 barley. And you tell me what you think about it. And, you know, just as an experiment, I mean, that is the most bourbon of bourbons. That is corn. And it was ghastly. So, I mean, I think you still need the complexity of the barley and a little bit of the rye, but I still love the higher corn content in terms. I mean, to me, this really tastes like what I would want a bourbon to taste like.
Now,
there's some bourbons that, yeah.
Are you using, and if the answer to this question is none of your damn business, Xavier, then so be it. But I want to ask you this question: are you using both a malted and unmalted barley?
It's malted.
Okay, all right. So you okay? Interesting. You know, I have to say, you talk about, not to be cliche, but talk about night and day difference. Okay, last night when Tiny and I tasted this, we got the neck pour, and it was like, you know, it's all right. It's nothing, not horrible, but it wasn't nothing to turn cartwheels in the street about. Now sitting down here drinking this now,
much better.
it's like it's a different bottle of bourbon. It's fantastic.
It's just how bourbon works.
Yeah, it has a chance to breathe a little bit.
Yeah, it really does. But I mean, it's got, and it really does have a better finish now. It has a finish that you can say, okay, yeah, it's not a campfire, but it's not bad.
You know, it's funny. I mean, you know, Roxy, Xavier, I'll throw you in there too, Tiny, but you've been talking most of the time. I will say the first bourbon that I ever experienced that with, I think I was in law school, was 1792 when it was called Ridgemont Reserve as well. And that was before it was just 1792. That was, I think, when Constellation Brands still owned it. And it was the first bourbon I ever had where I went, you know, God, you know, this is not good. And then once I got out of the neck pour, I went, oh, this is great. And so every time now, ever since then, I actually, I let it sit. I let everything sit. I never pour anything that I'm really, really trying to taste.
Yeah, and we've remarked on different bourbons how
gotta wait at least 5 minutes.
Exactly. Well, that makes a difference. Sorry, Tiny, let me get this thought out before I forget it. But that was a very dramatic difference, not just a little bit of a difference.
Yeah,
very dramatic.
And I felt that way with Ridgemont Reserve. I mean, boy, oh boy, was that awful the neck.
Yeah, and I wouldn't call it awful, but it just wasn't anything that, like, what you know, it's just there. Whereas this gets your attention.
Well, when you podcast, you go through a lot of bourbons, so you a lot of times open something and you don't revisit it for 4, 5, 8 months before. And Larceny, early on, I bought in Larceny and we did a tasting on it, and I wasn't a fan of it. It didn't taste like wheated bourbon to me at all. I mean, it was like harsh. It was lots of ethanol, but we opened that bottle right there on the tasting. And about 8 months later, I was going through all my bourbons, and I was documenting them on my phone because I had a program or an app to put all the, and rate them.
Tasting notes, yeah.
Yeah, and I went in and I popped that thing open, and I could not believe how unbelievably good it was. It was smooth. It was caramel. There was so much to it. And that's when so then I started asking distillers, and they'll kind of say, it's a real thing, but nobody ever really will like verify it, that out there, because they want you to drink it as fast as you possibly can. So
yeah, your bourbon's been around for 8 months.
But what I've been doing lately is when I buy the stuff, I've been opening it, not even doing it. And then when I finally get to the bourbon, it's been opened. But that really screwed me at Christmas time, because normally I'll go to my collection and I have a bunch of unopened bottles and I'm like, oh, this will be great for him and this will be great for
Can't
him.
re-gift.
Yeah, no, you don't. It really sucks to give somebody an open bottle of bourbon.
And this may be a weird thing to say, but ever since I can remember, I mean, we're talking about going back to when I was 8 or 9 or 10 years old, not alcohol, but I've always loved flavors and fragrances. I weirdly enough collected those designer imposter men's colognes. I was sort of obsessed with, like, wow, how do they get that smell, and how do they get that smell, and where does that come from? These all look kind of yellowish white or clear liquid, and this all just smells so damn different. And I've always, obviously, the same interest with food and so forth, but it's true actually in fragrances too. That's what I'm getting around to, is that if you have like a cologne that you spray on yourself and then you wait, I don't know, a few years, and you come back to it, it may not be perceptible if you don't have a great nose, but if you do have a great nose, it often tastes deeper smells deeper and richer, and you've got kind of more of a nuanced vibe to it. And so it is actually true with really almost any of these alcohol-based oily products.
Yeah, my wife uses essential oils in her business, and when that's basically distilling plant matter, it's distilling, and it's just unbelievable. I've learned a lot of tastes and smells that whiskey gives off by smelling the essential oils, because that's the whole tasting kit right there.
Yep.
And then you taste, and kind of start to understand the distilling process and how they get the flavors, where they get what yeast from, where they get the barrel, where they get it from the heads, what they pick up, all the different levels. And there's so many different ways, so many different, and then you mix the barrels together. So you can just get so many different flavors, and it's just endless amounts of flavors.
I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary. I think it's on Hulu now. I think I first saw it on Netflix, called Somm, SOMM. It's about sommeliers. One of the really interesting comments they made is, in order to be good at this job, you have to always be smelling things, because so you won't know what a dead, rotting violet smells like until you smell a dead, rotting violet. Mm-hmm. So in order to kind of have that in your mental portfolio of, oh yeah, this has that, or river rocks, or this tastes like, you always have to be smelling these things, otherwise you have no sense of it. You can sort of say, well, yeah, it kind of tastes sort of earthy. What you really mean is it tastes like a dead, wilted violet. And that's how these people can be. If you've never smelled or tasted or whatever a dead, wilted violet, you won't know what it smells like or tastes like. So you always have to be doing that.
Yeah, and there's some old-fashioned candies that we all had when we were growing up that a kid now has no idea. Like Bitter Honey, or you get a certain flavor, and they'd be like, I
lost teeth on that.
Yeah, or fillings.
The rock candy we used to get at Christmas time, the hard candy, and sometimes it was solid, sometimes it was filled with like a jelly of some sort.
Yep.
My dad used to love that.
I picked up you remember those strawberry candies, which had the filling in, but they were wrapped in a strawberry wrapper.
Oh yeah.
There was a rum barrel finished bourbon that I was drinking, and it was just, that finish was just exactly that candy.
They were like they had a cough drop feel to them, but you'd suck on them a while, and then you'd have like that strawberry honey in them.
Exactly.
Right.
They still exist, yeah.
They do. They still exist.
But there's certain. But like you said, you have to be able to know. So many people talk about Laffy Taffy, so most people know about that. But and I've heard some people say they taste nerds.
Well, yes. Hopefully the candy.
Yeah, exactly.
Going around licking the nerds, but yeah, I got you.
Revenge of the nerds.
All right, he answered that in all of it, so we got that covered. So let's get.
Are you sticking to a script here, Tiny? We could vibe. We could just vibe. I mean,
we're vibing now. I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to come through for you on this one. I'm ready.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
So the bourbon we talked about, the proof 86. So I like to do this little. My tasting notes on it. So tonight we're going to do that. And then you've got 13, 5, and 6 and 5. So if you were going to put an age statement, you would put 5 on it.
Well, if I had to, I suppose I would. Yeah.
But yeah, that's what you would be putting on. But still, having the 13 year in there.
Oh, there's a lot of 13 in here, so it's yeah.
Mhm.
You can definitely. That's
It's
where
just
I'll
not
go.
the youngest whiskey in there by far.
Right. One of my favorite and our favorite is Master Blend Evan Williams that comes out of the distillery up in Louisville. You know, the Evan Williams experience, and they got the 23-year Evan Williams in there. Plus they've probably got 6 different in there, but you could tell the majority of it's not the 23. But on this one, this has a little bit more. You could tell of the.
Oh yeah. Well, again, you know, I didn't want to leave out the connoisseur's corner, so to speak, for people who were tasting this. I didn't want it to just be sort of, when I say bourbon for everyone, that doesn't mean bourbon for the masses. That doesn't mean bourbon from a fire hose. That just means everyone can appreciate it regardless of your vibe with bourbon. You know, whether you're obsessed with it or whether you're new to it or whether you just see it on your friend's bar.
So even from this afternoon when we were doing the tasting, it's I think we're at the point where the bourbon has the bottle the oxygen has oxidated it enough to now the flavors are coming through. Because even from this afternoon it's picked up. I got a much deeper hug than I had been getting.
Absolutely.
So, and then I am picking up a finish. I think last night we whatever it was, we're not, weren't getting that finish.
The back palate is not as bitter either. I mean, everything is like it's like it bloomed.
Yeah, wonderful.
Well, no, thank you. I mean, that's how I taste it. I mean, I'm biased. This is my baby, but everyone who's tasted it has said that it has a long finish. So I would have been surprised if you said you didn't feel that. Now you just may have had a weird night last night or just a weird start to the bottle, but I'm glad to hear that you're getting it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And the oak on the back, that little bit of that oakiness is now longer.
Yep.
Right? And sweeter.
And you have no idea, Tiny, that 1.5% of ABV made all the difference in that. It was startling. I remember saying to him, like, H sample, because A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever. I said, no, that just had no nose, that had no finish, that had no nothing. And I really liked I. I mean, that just had all the finish. And ironically, it was the I sample that I really loved.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, that's just 1.5 ABV is the difference in that. And I said, Jesus, really?
So I would describe the finish as it's a soft finish. So it's not that you don't taste flavors anymore. It's just you don't feel your esophagus melting away.
It doesn't burn. And that was one of the I would not have released this if it had burned. And again,
more warmth there than what.
Well,
but
as you know, there's a lot of connoisseurs that like the burn. They like the punch. They like.
I do too.
They like some smoked charcoal.
Mrs. Xavier.
Yeah, yes.
I do too. I just was conscious of the fact
and I also say there's a certain amount of people that their taste buds are kind of dead, so that when you do get a spice or whatever, it wakes them up. Whereas other, just kind of whatever, if it's just no flavor to them at all. So I found
Lou Bryson's book, Tasting Whiskey, talks about kind of getting beyond that wall, where you finally start tasting things and you don't feel the burn and all that. Now, I'm relieved to tell you I don't drink enough constantly to be eliminating the wall, so I taste nothing but no alcohol. But yeah, that's really a thing. I mean, it is. I'm
pretty much to the point where with the podcast, I've been tasting enough where the wall's gone. And pretty much, I'll do a 125 proof, and I can swizzle it around like mouthwash, taste it, see what it is, get it through you get it through your whole mouth, and. But I mean, I understand the spice when it hits the back of my throat, but it's not what it used to be where I didn't like it or it was an uncomfortable thing. It's that there's no whiskey I drink anymore that's uncomfortable. It's more like it just doesn't taste good. That's kind of where the Old Forester the 1920 that I put up against this, it just didn't taste good. It just had this off taste.
And there's some
like the 1910.
Right.
There's some whiskeys that just have I mean, it's funny. I brought home, I was up visiting my family in the New York area, and I brought them an Eagle Rare to taste side by side with mine, and no besmirching Eagle Rare. I actually like Eagle Rare a lot, the 10-year-old, standard Eagle Rare. And I gave it to them totally blind, and they both panicked because they had a real preference, and they were afraid to tell me. They were like, oh God, we don't want to tell them that we really prefer cup A over cup B. And I said, no, just tell me honestly. I don't, it's bottled, it's done. This was last summer. The baby's in the can. And they said, well, we so much prefer this. And I said, you know what, that's mine. And they were stunned because they were like, yeah, this one just sort of has like a sourness, a tannicness to it on the finish, and yours didn't have any of that. And I was like, okay, great. this is cool. I mean, obviously
You made it for them.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say, but I mean, I would say.
No, but I mean, that's the type of bourbon drinker that you're making it for. People who don't like the burn, people who aren't, you know what I mean? We did the blind test after reading about that, on the website.
That's why we did it.
And we went through, and I suck at blind. That's another reason why we went to a tasting at the Meatheads Union in Worcester, Ohio, on Tuesday. They gave us five glasses in front of us. I thought, I mean, I knew all of them. I drank all of them, and I thought I knew what I was doing, and it was 0 for fucking 5. And it's just like, and I'm like, no way. There's no way. Like, for instance, Angel Envy with the port wine finish. I swore to God I could taste the port wine on the one. And that ended up being Little Book Chapter 5. I mean, it was just so.
And, there's a French expression, chacun son goût. In other words, to each one's taste.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously everything is to someone's taste. I mean, I consider myself a bourbon connoisseur, a bourbon obsessive, and I love my bourbon. But I also am super proud of the fact that my parents who take it either on the rocks or never take it, which is what my mother is, is like, wow, this is really good. And, and then that's just really cool to me. I mean, that's just a transcendent moment.
We should get Xavier's mom taste it.
Well,
Well, see,
We'll have a
I think
follow-up
if you get
podcast
somebody
with
else's mom.
the mothers of the Scotchy Bourbon.
If I was in the bourbon business, if I was distilling bourbon, I could give my mom carburetor cleaner, and because I'm her son, she'd tell me it was good.
Yeah, but
so
they
the real test is
blinded them
to get a non-related mom.
Yeah, but
We
no,
always
at the
talk
same
about-
time,
We talk about spin-off series. We should have the mothers of the Scotchy Bourbon.
Yeah, exactly.
it's what would the nicknames be?
that would be completely, everybody would be overshadowed by this one's mother right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there would be a
She's Sicilian,
fight
so-
between my mom and
Oh, yeah.
her
Oh, there
mom.
was.
So
They-
yeah,
Since they've been fighting for 37 years.
yeah, maybe the bourbon
Behind the
would
scenes.
lighten them up.
Maybe it would.
Yeah, who
But
knows?
I say something about, after putting this bourbon up against all the others, and Jeff said it was very easy to distinguish after we did that 4 or 5 times, yours from theirs, which to me is a huge positive because the nose is very unique. That taste on the front end was very specific. So doesn't just taste like every other sweet bourbon that's out there, or every other,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
There's something that's unique about it that made it stand out, that was easy for me, except for up against the Basil Hayden, which I had a little trouble.
Which is another bourbon for everyone.
Yeah, but again, you were like, oh, there's that very distinctive aromas that this bourbon has. That the nose is a huge strength of your bourbon.
It is.
The nose is really beautiful.
Yeah, it's the
It's a
strength.
beautiful nose. It really is.
Caramel, vanilla, and then we did
A
agree
little bit of nut and
cashew. I mean, it was
not
just
too much ethanol, so it doesn't like water your eyes.
There's a
and,
lot less ethanol today.
Yeah.
Well, that was a super intentional choice of mine. I said to you earlier, I guess when we were first speaking, I knew I love things that are over 50% ABV, but that's not my brand. That's not my story. That's not my universe. And so I knew I had to be between, 40 and 46, maybe at the max, because I needed that kind of level where people are not going to go, and I think I really liked it. Yeah.
Well, then success.
The other thing that I'm getting today, that I wasn't getting, and this is a very unsophisticated, very hand-to-mouth drinking, which that's me, is I think the nose should accurately indicate what you're going to be tasting. I don't think the nose should vary from the taste that much. And I know there's no science behind that. That's just my
No,
own
I get it.
preference. And yesterday there was a pretty significant variance. Today you've closed that gap. I mean, it's very impressive.
Even there was no cinnamon yesterday, and right now I'm picking up a
there's
little
some
bit of cinnamon in
Yeah.
there.
Oh, I get a lot of cinnamon. Yeah.
Right. So, but like yesterday, I could tell you your bottle design is like Willet, but your bourbon is better than Willet pot still bourbon. So you got that right there. And I don't dislike Willet pot. There's a lot of people who do, but at the same time, that one, the flavor profile is like when you buy that bottle of Willet pot still bourbon, you want it to taste like what your bourbon tastes like, and then it tastes like a washed down version of this. That's the only way I can describe it. There's it has the nuttiness, the cashew, but theirs are more like a hazelnut. And then, that's just based off of, memory, but once again, like I said, I'm glad that I knew I wanted to let it sit for at least a day before we were tasting it with you, because I've had bad experiences with just opening the bottle,
Cold turkey.
No, you always have to let it sit at least 5 minutes. I mean, I discovered that really early on. Like, it does not taste the same in second one or even minute one as it does sometimes 10 minutes in, or even the next day.
Or even 3 months later. It's always changing with that oxygen. I mean, it's just part of the process. There's nothing.
Well, don't let mine sit on the table for 3 months, please. Keep buying it.
Well, did you happen to see what's left of this? And this is,
I know. Well,
when did you send this to me?
Tell your viewers.
This is a bourbon for everybody that's very easy to drink neat. I wouldn't wreck it by throwing an ice cube in it, or any drops of water. I would just stick to drinking this one.
Oh, drinking.
No, that arrived to you. I think that arrived to you 2 days ago. I think that was like February 1st or something. It arrived or something like that. What is today?
I got
it really fast. So
yeah, you gave it to me
maybe
Tuesday.
even a day before that.
We opened it last night to taste it, just to make sure that we had our ducks in the row. And now it's Thursday and we're drinking it. So that's what should be happening.
There's more on the finish today, like I told you earlier, upstairs, like that, fresh baked bread kind of finish. So
yeah, I agree.
You can buy it.
The corn really comes out in the finish.
Well, let me shamelessly plug. You can buy it at i-bourbon.com.
Shamelessly plug away.
Yes, and
No shame.
And when we first were talking, I don't believe you were shipping to Ohio, but you are now shipping to Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've always shipped to Ohio.
Okay.
I shipped to Ohio when I first came out because one of my mom grew up in Cincinnati, so she had some folks who wanted to be supportive right there on the Kentucky border. Yeah, I mean it's going well online, but I obviously need more people to try it.
Well,
and not that the bourbon aficionados like you guys wouldn't want to just buy this off the shelf, but if someone said, "Hey, I've never had bourbon, and what should I buy?" This would be a really good choice for.
Yeah, and also if
a starter bourbon.
If you're,
I would say a connoisseur will still love it.
I said not that they wouldn't love it. I'm just saying this.
Also, this is a great gift bourbon.
Oh, very good gift.
I think you're going to have a really good gift giving season coming up because one, it comes off the you get it out there, and then it's perfect for. Let's just say you're trying to buy something for somebody and you want to get them, something. Yep. There you go.
Get all excited about the eye.
Yeah.
Yep.
I honestly didn't see that.
No, I did.
And now I think it's
Did
super
you see
cool.
the picture that I used to promote that we were going to do this tonight? The picture I used, you could see the bourbon with the eye in the background. I was able.
Well, the idea was also that you'd look at it. I mean, I had this weird thought with Jimmy Owens, my bottle designer, where I wanted people to look at it, and bourbon is actually written right down the middle, right down the middle of the debossed eye in the back of the bottle, and then you'd look at it, and if you look down, the word bourbon is visible through the brown liquid. So I mean, it was actually a totally intentional sort of cool design that I
Mhm.
that
Right.
I vibe with. Thinking
Yeah, I like
very
it.
much also this will be on a bar, with a little backlighting, or it'll be on a bar, a store shelf, and you kind of look into it and see that. I mean, I love the minimalism of it too. Very few bottles of bourbon just say bourbon on the, on the front of them.
Yeah.
And you'll look at it, and then you see the eye in the back. I mean, that's the only indicator of the eye other than the top.
Yeah.
And my
Right.
motto, my tag, which I'm also proud to say is trademarked, is "It's yours." And that's written in triplicate around this cork, and that's one of my trademarks back there. But that's really the idea, is that when you think of what is your bourbon, what is your go-to bourbon? This is I Bourbon, and it's yours.
Yeah, I think you got
I'm
everything.
trying to trademark my business name. Maybe you have to hook me up with your trademark attorney. So
Damn right.
Let me ask you this. I've seen it.
since you got
Both
so many
ways.
wonderful things trademarked so easily, or so.
A bourbon for everyone. It's yours, and I Bourbon and the bottle are all
Yeah,
trademarked.
well,
Is it a
I'm near to you, midwifery, nurture, educate, and nurture, empower, advocate, and respect.
Jesus.
As my acronym for my business. So I wanted to have that trademarked.
There you go.
Hopefully your trademark attorney doesn't charge by the letter.
Yes.
No.
No, my question is this. I Bourbon, is there a hyphen there or not?
No.
Okay.
What
I've
is
seen it mostly no hyphen. I think I saw one page come up with I-bourbon.
Well, what's annoying is if you look at the side, and I talk about my little brand story in a little
Mhm.
paragraph here, it has no hyphen at the bottom. What's annoying is that someone has been squatting for years, I believe in China, on iBourbon without a hyphen.com. And I'm just not interested in paying someone for squatting.
I Bourbon.
So I
Because of
I put the-
iPhone, I Bourbon,
iBourbon,
get it.
Yeah, I put the hyphen in because I had to. But no, the brand name is I space bourbon, and there will be, I gin, there will be I rum, there will, all those things forthcoming. But yes, it is. Hopefully by then, maybe I will have accumulated enough money that I could drive that guy away. But no, I'm perfectly comfortable with the hyphen.
Interesting.
All right. So is
It's
there
annoying is what it is, Xavier.
I did want to, I just thought we'd
did
see if we could
you
make, lemonade out of lemons.
Well, if you Google iBourbon, you'll find me. It's the first thing that pops up on iBourbon. So
yeah, you're definitely the iBourbon website that doesn't actually exist doesn't even come up at all.
No.
no, I know.
So
That
now
was
that you have it and you're not using it, you might after a while be able to get it from him for a lot less because you'll realize he'll never get anything.
Damn right. Well, now that I have, it's one of the cool things of trademark. The only patent and trademark or intellectual property law I ever studied was for the bar exam. You had to know some minimal amount of it. And so I'd learned the minimal amount I had to know. But I had to hire a trademark attorney because I didn't know what I didn't know. And one of the cool things is now that I have I Bourbon, I naturally can have I gin. Nobody else could have I gin. Nobody else could have I rye. Nobody else could have I rum. And same thing with a bourbon for everyone. Nobody else can have a gin for everyone, a scotch for everyone, all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the cool things is that there is that kind of confusing trademark thing. So once you own that base level, you kind of get all the other ones. That's just a little bit of inside baseball for you.
Cool.
Yeah, excellent. So anything else you want to add that we didn't ask you?
Just promote the hell out of it, will you?
Of course, I will, for sure. Oh, the one thing I wanted to say is I have a lot of listeners in Wisconsin, and that is one place that you are
Absolutely.
on the shelf.
Oh,
So all the Wisconsin listeners, you can go out and get this, and I'll throw out Steve Pitzer as one person that should go out and get one of these bottles. He's one of my good friends, and I'll mention him by name here, call him out because he loves bourbon. He's always asking me what to get. So there's one right on the podcast that you can get.
They were one of my earliest adopters. Georgia and Wisconsin were two of the earliest adopters. So I'm very pleased to be in Wisconsin. They are not the sixth most populous state, but they are the sixth highest consumption by volume.
I grew up
There you go.
Yep.
100% true. It was one of the
Yeah.
greatest statistics I ever learned, was that they consume by volume, not per capita, but by liquid volume, the 6 malts alcohol. And most of it actually is American brandy, which I find interesting.
They drink everything there.
Yeah,
We
they
drink beer. We drank brandy.
Well, let's get some damn Wisconsin folks to buy my bourbon. I like it.
There you go. We
Let's
can.
get some cheeseheads. Come on now.
Yeah, for sure. They're probably drinking more bourbon after that Packer game. So
Yeah.
that definitely.
Drowning their sorrows.
No, they're just looking for some happiness.
Yeah.
Well, have mine.
You know.
It'll make you happy.
I'm having it. I'm happy.
Look at it. Look. Come on, audience. Look at Tiny's bottle. That's in a day.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, honestly, I ran this through a rigorous exercise, and I've never pushed a bourbon like we pushed your bourbon, right?
I was gonna say, am I being enough of a whore, right?
Hey, you're on here to push what you love,
Right,
and
that's
what
the
you're
fun
selling
of it.
and what your
Right.
passion is, and that's why
It's my baby. This is
Yeah.
my life for forever now. This has been my job, my only job for the last 3 years. So I really want people to try it, because I can't tell you, it's so satisfying when people try it. They love it, and I'm so relieved.
Well, that's a good thing. I mean, I obviously you understand you can't please everybody, but you just got to please a majority of people. And when it comes to alcohol, usually that's it's a tricky thing, but
It's a weird lane. It's a very weird lane, because I didn't want to just release a small bat, a small, 17,000 bottle run bourbon. I had to create a lane. And so I had to be very conscious of, when I created the brand and created the blending. I mean, I consider myself a creator, not a blender per se. I had to have a lane, and my lane, I think I succeeded in, was the bourbon for everyone, or it's yours, because I think I really threaded the needle with the 13-year-olds, with the 5s, with the 6s, with the others, to get that kind of a lane, because otherwise you're just a bourbon on a shelf. And there really has to be something that makes it, well, I was about to say that makes it yours, but it's yours. That's my tagline. So
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and it will stand out. That's for sure.
Yeah, you're going in the right direction. I think the market's there. I think as we go forward, I think that it's going to be successful. I do.
Oh, well, I'd be having a very, very tough conversation with myself if people weren't liking it, but everyone who's tried it has loved it. So I'm pretty stoked, and I hope your audience will give it a shot. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Two shots, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. This is kind of what with the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, we're not as mainstream. We have a lot more people who are looking for beginning startups, craft distilleries.
Mm-hmm.
We have that, but we do have some mainstream, and we cover it. But overall, I think we should be able to do some promoting, and I'll just keep promoting it going down the line.
Yeah, we like to go out and find unique things.
Now, where do you actually reside?
I'm in Arlington, Virginia.
In Virginia.
My beautiful condominium apartment that you're seeing my study office in.
You got some bad weather too, right? Off this storm?
Not this one, no. We just got a whole mess of rain. It was about 50 degrees, so there was none of the snow. It's just been raining all day.
Yeah. We started out with rain, and it was supposed to snow, but it was the warmth was so much that as it hit it was 28 degrees and raining most of the day, because it was still warm in the upper atmosphere.
Oh, right.
It took a while for that to go up and then turn to snow. So
Well,
even though it was
rained
freezing
ice
rain.
balls for a while, little tiny ice pellets.
Yeah, shoveling this is really weird. It's like shoveling like plastic
Gravel.
balls.
Like
I mean, they're so small. It's just like you're moving.
Dippin' Dots?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Dippin' Dots.
That's it. And it just slides out of the shovel, It's really weird. All right.
Yep.
So thank you very much.
Yes, thank
Yes,
you.
Thanks, guys.
Time.
And
And
we're going to.
congratulations. And
Thank you.
You got
I-
a great product here.
I-bourbon.com, y'all.
Yep, I'm going to take us out. Remember, everybody, www.scotchybourbonboys.com. We are on all major podcast formats. Just remember, if you're listening on whatever podcast format you are listening on, to give us subscribe, a like, and also leave positive feedback. It helps out a lot. Also, we are on Facebook group. We have a meeting coming up tomorrow night here in Canton, Ohio. North Canton at the Barrel Room. Anybody listening to this and tomorrow, just stop by, say hi. We are going to be tasting 3 Old Forester from the line 1910, 1920, and 1897. And that will be 3 pours for $10. So stop by there.
Nice.
We are on Instagram. We are on Twitter at Scotchy the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. And then also right here on YouTube. So remember, everybody, good bourbon equals good friends and good times, and make sure you go out there and live dangerously. Take us out, little Steve.
Thank you, everyone.
Dancing bottle.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die.
All right. We're done with that.
Podcast.
And you can hit stop recording. Thanks everybody on YouTube for listening.
Thank you, folks.
Right there. Lower. Nope, to the left. That. Nope. That.
The watershed story. A watershed moment might be pivotal, but it might also be quiet and fleeting. It could be a monumentous occasion, a cause for celebration, an enormous triumph, or a small daily victory. A watershed moment could be a rekindling or an observation or a gathering. Any opportunity to relish with friends and family. It's whatever you choose to cheers to, who you're gathered around, and whatever's worth celebrating. We founded Watershed Distillery on the principles of community in 2010. We wanted to live in, work in, and contribute to the community in which we grew up. We aimed to create spirits and stood apart in quality and character. Along the way, we set out to form a community of our own, one that could gather together to savor, celebrate, and enjoy good spirits and company. We've grown from a tiny little still and 2 guys in jumpsuits to a dedicated team of over 40 people and 2 much larger stills. If you're ever in the area, stop by so we can introduce you to our team and pour you some of our award-winning bourbon. Creating it was our watershed moment, but we want to hear about yours.